Throughout the history of Queensland high school esports, there have been some schools that have been synonymous with success, and today we're seeing two of them take battle yet again. Our first match is going to be Kelvin Grove taking on McGregor, and I'm joined by an actual person this time, not some crazy digital hologram. Warp Driver is here, and I am keen to share with you your first experience, I suppose, of some high school League of Legends.
I know, it's been a long time since I've cast like one little season of high school in my history, but I'm really excited to get into this stream because some of these games I've been watching from a distance have been pretty impressive, and you know, although they're high school players, they're actually much better than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely tended to be the case, especially later towards like the end of 2020. We really saw that happening, but new year, new students, new programs, some old programs, but essentially like new structures to them, I would have to assume. We're still in that developmental stage, which in a lot of ways is that most exciting stage. And when you have two schools with such stoic histories competing in this event, seeing where they're at right now, seeing how they're going to match up, I feel like this opening game for sure is going to be a telling one. I think it's going to be an exciting one, and it could be the return to form for one Kelvin Grove after winning back in 2019. I think they have a real chance this year, and they could be showing us why.
I definitely agree with you on that. I think that looking at this first game, you've got two very strong contenders, but you know, so early in the season, they're going to go up against each other. One of them's going to have to lose the O on their clean sheet so far, and that's really where we're going to start seeing that differentiating in the ladder. I think currently we've got 10 first place, 2 11th place, and 10 13th place. So we're going to need to split that bracket up a little bit more, and this is going to be sort of the, I'd say probably the contender for the top 3 sort of area.
I think
we could very much see Kelvin Grove and the other team in this bracket.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Now, this year is a little bit different than years of past, as you're mentioning. We only have about 20 teams in our top division. It still is a Swiss format, and it's still going to be over the course of 8 weeks. And that means these early stages, still that feeling out, still getting the idea. Due to the nature of Swiss, you might get some odd matchups early, you might get some more one-sided affairs, but as the year progresses, as teams start to discover sort of where they lie, they'll be getting more and more competitive matches. Will be more even footing. So we can take a quick look actually at some of those results from last week right now, just over there. Again, a lot of familiar names getting wins. Mansfield, both their teams wound up getting victories. McGregor actually beat a different Kelvin Grove, the red team, which is typically, I believe, their B team compared to Kelvin Grove Green, which has been their more top team. Some new names as well. The Toowoomba Anglican School, actually, TAS. Keep your eyes on that one because we're going to be seeing more of them later today as well. Chisholm Maroon, they're back. They're finding victories over Maroochydore, which is a little bit, that was, a fun one that we had. I believe we played that last week. That was our first game on stream, and it was an exciting comeback straight away. These are our results from that first week, so you can see familiar names, some new ones as well, and I'm excited to sort of see as things progress. I'm really curious on Toowoomba, actually. I think that could be a fun school to watch.
Yeah, I think TAS could definitely be one of those wild card schools that sort of just come out of nowhere midway through the season, and you look at the ladder and you're like, oh, they're that high? And they're definitely one of those schools to watch out for. And that's the beauty of this sort of tournament style, is that none of these schools are really going to be out until they're out. Yep. And they get a lot of opportunity to actually show up and show off their abilities on the Rift, which is, what this tournament's all about after all.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the key components, is having a way to showcase what you are looking to put down the Rift. But the other important things to learn, and why the start of the season for me is always so interesting, and something that I like to emphasize, is the importance of structure, I suppose. And I do believe that the teams that discover that structure first are going to be the ones who succeed. And I don't mean structure necessarily in playing on the Rift or how that necessarily looks. When I say structure, I mean balance between, your school life, your diet, sleep patterns, as well as the practice, as well as the training, discovering that communication, because we're always going to be big proponents here of finding that balance, finding that structure, and how to integrate, hobbies such as sport, or in this case, esport, into your life. And I do firmly believe that these schools that are going to be quicker to the ball in terms of getting in their routines, getting proper structure that's healthy for the students themselves, they're going to be the ones that start to develop faster, that start to grow as a team faster, and they're going to be the ones that we possibly see excel sooner than some others. So for that reason, It's why I love the start of the season more. It's because we get to see which schools really are on the ball.
Yeah, and just back with that point you were saying, it's one of those things, the saying that, everything in moderation or everything in too much is, is bad for you, and everything in moderation is, much more beneficial for you. And that goes with this. And these schools, like you're saying, I think it's really important that the schools, they promote that, it's okay to have hobbies, whether it be conventional sports or esports. I think that, getting those schools to teach people, the proper routine, like you're saying, so that they're not, overindulging in one thing. Because whether you indulge in, sport or esports or anything, it's not always great for you. So I think the schools, like you're saying, that get that structure and they get that routine down, and they get people to realize that they have more that they can do, and to make sure that they're doing other things, they're not missing out on their schoolwork, they're not doing all that. Those are going to be the teams that are really going to excel.
And I do know a few of the schools already in this event are looking that way. Chisholm, again, they have a very strong esports program. Kelvin Grove, very integrated, very involved from what we have seen from their teachers. So those sort of practices are in place, but that's, what's happening behind the scenes. We're really much just 1 minute away right now from actually getting on to the picks and bans itself. So we're going to take a quick look at these lineups. Kelvin Grove green today will be on our blue side. That's Endrial in the top lane. Tiny's Kids in the jungle. Sponkle running mid. Daphne green grass in the bot lane. And Rowdey on support.
And for the other team that should be coming up in a second here, we have
MacGregor.
MacGregor is the team that's going to be coming up. And
I think they might have a tough match today.
No, they're definitely going to have a tough match. And as you saw, that just at the very end, the bot lane changed to Prinćess.
Okay.
Yeah, so Prinćess is going to be in the bot lane for Kelvin Grove there. A very, very strong player that we've seen looking, off stream statistics, very strong player. The whole Kelvin Grove team in general is incredibly strong, and I think that's part of the reason they're having, some of the success that they're having and projected to have for the rest of the season. Is they've got such a good team. There they are, MacGregor GG. We've got Rythmic in top lane, LoLQHS in jungle, anthonaaaay down mid, Benny Boy 903 on ADC, and Comga on support. Now, I think MacGregor's going to have a pretty hard game today on their hands, because we're looking at one of the top contenders in this tournament with Kelvin Grove. So MacGregor's really going to play, to all of their strengths to get this to work for them. And if they do that, I think they definitely stand a chance against Kelvin Grove. However, if Kelvin Grove is able to get their ball rolling and get those win cons under their belt, and they've got the experience factor, on their side to sort of make sure that they end up getting those balls rolling. But if MacGregor can stop that, then I think we're going to be for a very close, very tight, and a very entertaining game.
Yeah, you did hint on it before. Prinćess is kind of the player that we're going to be watching out for on the Kelvin Grove side. And it's interesting because this player is typically a top laner in solo queue. However, they've moved them to the bot lane. And this tells me a few things. First thing, and probably most importantly, is I believe Kelvin Grove is recognizing the current state of the meta and how a lot of games are starting to go back into being bot side focus, particularly late. I'm going to sneeze, I'm sorry. I apologize. I couldn't stop it. I felt it coming and there was no way to get around it. But yes, no, Prinćess is going to be the one down in that bot lane that we are going to be watching out for, whereas top has been left on an island a fair bit recently. The thing is with the bot lane, though, is we don't feel that impact largely until I'd say 2-3 items in, so around that 25-minute mark. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kelvin Grove plays around that and they're going to be looking to go for scaling. What I want to see from MacGregor in this is a very aggressive jungle mid synergy. I feel like if they're going to find a way into this, it's going to be try to keep the game from getting too late, try to keep Kelvin Grove down so Prinćess isn't able to scale. So I'm going to be looking at LoLQHS as well as anthonaaaay and seeing how they're going to synergize with each other, seeing if they can take over the map. That's what I'm hoping for in these pick and bans, but I have to throw it back to you. What sort of champions are you expecting to see?
Well, seeing as we prioritize the bot lane looking at here, I'm expecting, if it's not picked or banned, either a Kai'Sa or a Jinx onto Prinćess. Kai'Sa, Jinx are at the moment pretty much the queens of bot lane. Both, above 52% win rate with a 44% pick rate on a Kai'Sa and a 25 on a Jinx. They are absolutely dominating bot lane at the moment. And if you can get Prinćess onto one of those hard scaling champions, like you're saying though, it is going to take that 2 to 3 items before them to really show up. But if you can get them on that champion and let the game get to that point, it is going to be very, very scary for either team going up against that. So I'm expecting McGregor maybe to go for something maybe like a Tristana even, just to really try shut down, get that early aggression, even in the mid lane, like you're saying. Anthonaaaay, Lapultra really need to be proactive in the early game. So potentially something maybe like a Lilia and a Tristana, something along those lines, just to really jump on the jungle, jump on the mid lane, and just get those kills, get the ball rolling early.
Well, you can see already with McGregor's bans, they are trying to take away some of those late scalers. Anivia and Cho'Gath, each notorious for how strong they can get in that late game. The Katarina ban, an unusual one from Kelvin Grove Green. Obviously a targeted ban focusing on anthonaaaay, not necessarily playing around meta. Swain will be our last ban in this. A lot of power picks actually in the bot lane still are able to sneak through. And with priority, I expect Kelvin Grove to actually look towards that bot lane with their first pick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think a Kai'Sa first pick isn't a terrible option here. And I think that's what we're going to see. You know, like I said, she's a dominating force in the bot lane at the moment. And I actually think that it's probably a better idea for McGregor, to not go for the bot lane here and sort of develop their team around what they need to do. We see a couple more picks from Kelvin Grove before they dive, full into the counter play. We're currently seeing the Garen locked in and an Amumu hover. Interesting. Amumu, very good at team fighting, very good at shutting down, especially if you get a Thornmail on that character, could be really good. A potential pick here, just out of left field for the mid lane, could always be a Galio in the mid lane. That armor and magic resist
that is
could
beefy.
Really. It's a beefy boy, and against a Kai'Sa who does that hybrid damage incredibly well, could be just what you need, especially the dive in for the ganks. We're talking about proactive plays that need to come from McGregor. That's about as proactive as they get.
Yeah, I'm interesting though with McGregor though, is they're playing two very, I think, easy to execute champs with their first two lock-ins, and that tells me that they're not trying to get too complicated with things. The Ornn and the Sett locked in. I like the Sett kind of as a bit of a take buster. I'm assuming that's going to be a support set, considering we've seen Ornn following up with it. Ornn, obviously one of the best team fighting champions in the game, and I'm starting to get a little bit worried for the McGregor side, because Kelvin Grove, they are putting together a very scary looking comp that already has a few different elements to it. You've got that dive damage potential with the Kai'Sa. You've got yourself a front line as well. I imagine they're going to go for a mid laner at this stage. That's going to be a bit more supported, kind of something like an Orianna or even a Syndra if it's in Sponkle's champion pool. And then when you look at the McGregor side, I feel like they're going more for comfort right now. Their bans aren't really making any sense. I'm not sure we will see an Ivern in this game, but you know what? I'm all for Ivern ban, slow jungle. I don't know. I feel Kelvin Grove definitely seems to have their game plan, and they're playing very well towards it.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting idea from Kelvin Grove to take the Sett and then the Ornn, because Sett, usually would just be a triple flex there. You can go top, mid, or support. The Ornn can really efficiently only go top and mid. So you're sort of locking a couple of positions out, but the Ryze pick from McGregor's a little interesting. I think that it can definitely work if Ryze is going to be able to get those kills under his belt. However, that being said, looking at the team comp currently drafted by Kelvin Grove, is Ryze really going to have the freedom to get those engages and get those free kills? When you look, you've got Ornn, you've got Sett, you've got Kai'Sa, characters who love to just get in and fight. And Ryze, other than his ulti, and maybe if he takes the Phase Rush, he's relatively immobile in a team fight, so you get a Sett ulti or an Ornn ulti coming through, he can get caught very easily by that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Rel ban, also the last ban for McGregor, tells me that they're not expecting that Sett to go support, which was kind of my forced inclination of where I believe that's going. It could be a jungle Sett still. Vayne, Ezreal, going to be those last two bans, each targeting Benny Boy, trying to get rid of some of those sort of like brawly, skirmishy AD carries, but does leave up one of the most notorious ones at the moment. I'm curious if we get to see, a little bit of Bayonetta in the bot lane.
Yeah, a little smash melee Bayonetta action, just jumping around everywhere. But, Samira, since her recent changes, and we are seeing a hover from actually Kelvin Grove this time of a Galio.
Oh my God.
I was thinking McGregor should take it, and Kelvin Grove's gone, hey, if you don't want it, we'll take it. So very possibly going to see the Galio coming in here, maybe mid lane or even support. They've still got a couple of flexes on their team, which is really, really good for them because they'll be able to adjust accordingly as time comes. Never mind, they do opt for the Corki. And they're going for the
Galio support.
Yeah, maybe a Galio support Sett jungle. Yeah. The Corki pick, is interesting here because it's one of those situations where they could have just put the Galio in the mid lane, and Ryze just doesn't get to play the game. The magic resist, all that. Ryze is irrelevant, so one of their key positions they need to get going is just removed completely from the game. Instead, opting for the Corki, which is, it's a bit of a feast or famine style champion. If Corki can get some kills under his belt, then, that machine gun spray, those rockets are really going to hurt. But you're giving an avenue for Amumu and Ryze to get back in the game by putting a slightly less tanky character in that mid lane, as we're assuming it's going to be. We see the Leona picked up. Samira, Leona. Samira passive with anyone who can provide a stun is about as brutal as it gets. So pretty formulaic pick there.
Yeah.
Overall, I think Kelvin Grove probably came out ahead in draft, which is not a great sign for McGregor, seeing as Kelvin Grove are already sort of leaning to the side of experience favoritism. But I definitely think it wasn't the cleanest draft from both teams. That being said, individual skill and individual play is really going to be important here. And it's going to be a chance for all of these laners to shine. We say, Ryze might have a hard time into that team comp. But if Ryze pops off, even more of a flex.
So the thing that's honestly most striking to me, and which has me the most excited about this matchup, is both teams, as we get sort of past that 20-25 minute mark, assuming we're still at an even game state, the way how they want to team fight is actually quite similar. We're kind of looking at two dive comps about to smash into each other, and that has me a bit giddy because that turns into, it can go one of two ways. Either you get the elongated sort of chess match where each team is trying to outspace each other. They're going to be the ones who try to find that right engage, and then you finally get this game where you're just sort of running circles around each other and around neutral objectives. Or, which I think is a bit more likely, they just go at it. And I think we're going to be seeing a very explosive game. Watch for those go buttons to be hit on each of these sides. When Amumu hits that bandage toss, expect Leona to fall through with that Zenith Blade. If Rowdey's going to find a way to get that taunt, look out, because Prinćess is going to be dropping that killer instinct right as that call of the Forge God Ram comes barreling on through. I think we're going to be getting some very explosive engages. I think we're going to be getting potentially some very explosive team fights, assuming we're still at that even game state. And I do believe, with the kind of comp that Kelvin Grove put together, if McGregor wants to keep that even game state, they have a pretty easy line to do it. They just need to make sure Prinćess doesn't get too far ahead and try to help out that bot lane as possible, because the later we get, the more and more I feel damage it's going to be having to come from that Kai'Sa on the blue side.
Yeah, Kai'Sa's definitely going to have to play an important role here. They do have an interesting scenario for McGregor, which is that they've got three relatively tanky champions into a double hybrid carry position. So they're in a bit of an awkward position. They can't just build AD armor, they can't just build magic resist, because both Corki and Kai'Sa do a bit of both, which makes them very difficult to build against. I think it's definitely going to be a bot lane heavy game if we want to see that late game for McGregor to come through. Samira, with her recent change, is going to be notoriously good once you get to that late game. That being said, with Sett ganking down bot lane, we've got to take into consideration Samira, a little less safe as she used to be, can no longer dash through allies. So that disengage potential from the Samira on the bot lane is pretty much not there. So if you get a good gank from Rowdey, Prinćess, and tiny kids, then that's going to be really, really brutal.
I don't know if McGregor even wants to disengage though, because look at their comp. They don't realistically even have it. Leona, she goes in, she's in. Amumu's in. Garen doesn't know how to retreat. Demacian justice, it runs through his veins. He's not running away. I don't think retreat is in McGregor's arsenal right now. So I'm curious if that disengage or lack of disengageability is actually going to come into fruition right now. I mean, really, again, neither of these teams have disengage, right?
Yeah,
maybe Corki can jump away to safety, but that's not what he's going to be using the package for. He's going to be using it to go flying in. This is shaping up to be an absolute bloodbath right now, and I'm really keen for it. I mean, we can talk about how they are going to try to play through that bot lane, perhaps to try to keep Prinćess down. For KG Green, again, I think their win condition a little bit obvious. They got to get that bot side ahead. Granted, don't sleep on the power spike out of mid. If Sponkle gets ahead as well, one item in, all of a sudden that Corki can absolutely delete you from the map. So we will be keeping our eyes on that. But with both sides looking to, I think, play around what they could perceive as a stronger bot side, early dragons are going to be, I think, skirmished over. Early jungle pathing is going to be something we're going to have to focus on as well. This is going to be, I think, a very interesting game from the word go, and I'm so curious if McGregor can keep pace and even surpass Kelvin Grove Green. I mean, Lap Ultra and Tiny Kids, they're going to have my focus for the first 3-4 minutes of this game.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They're going to be some of the big players in this early game. And I think this game here is about as close as you're going to get to if League of Legends had a deathmatch mode. I think this is about as close as you're going to get. Effectively ARAM, but there's no retreat button. I think that's what we're going to be getting in these team fights. You know, they both want to go front to back to front, either way. It doesn't really matter. Fighting is fighting, and that is what they want to do. I definitely think, based on the point you made earlier, dragons are going to be really important for both of these team comps, because there's 4 souls that come to mind that just really,
Four souls are coming to mind?
4 souls are coming to mind.
I can't imagine why you'd have 4 souls come to your mind.
Exactly, and that's the thing. All 4 souls are incredible for this both teams. You know, the infernal damage, you can never say no in a team fight, especially you get a Samira or a Kai'Sa, you know, with that infernal soul ulti, you know, it's going to start shredding through the enemy team. You get a Ocean Soul, the healing is going to be absolutely brutal on both teams. You get the, you know, ult cooldown, hey, we can fight more often. And you get, you know, you just get all of these, you know, the Mountain Soul, the tank, just makes you even harder to kill. There's nothing, no dragon is bad for this, both of these teams, and that's going to make them an incredibly contested objective.
Well, that said, I think that timer has just hit 0, so we should be bouncing on over to Summoner's Rift in any actual moment. I actually kind of want to see the Cloud Soul. I know that's weird, but like this is the first time I've ever been like, you know what? That movement speed after ultimates could be very interesting for Betty Boy or for Sponkle or even for Tiny Kids when that showstopper just throws them deep into the enemy line. I mean, I'm very curious. I mean, the Dragon Soul game is going to be big. Obviously, the Baron fights are going to be big as well, and it looks like we are heading on to the Rift. There we go. We are there, and nothing too crazy kind of jumping out at me right away, except I'm going to be that guy right now. Ornn, Endrial, that item bar is looking a little barren.
Yeah, it is looking a little barren. If this could be some unknown strat that hasn't graced the Rift yet, you know, it's very similar, very akin to Dota style play where you save your gold from early, just get as much gold as you can in that couple waves. You know, you might be doing the push to recall for that cheetah, and then, you know, get a better item off the bat. You know, even get that Kindle gem, something else straight away. That could be what he's trying to do here. In all likelihood, he's probably just forgot to buy the item. He's already used Flash. I think in that little minute that we might not have seen, it's very possible that that top side got jumped on and that he was forced to use the Flash.
There's no damage. It was just the Flash.
Maybe a misclick.
Could have been a misclick. That's very unusual. Endrial. You know what? He's coming into this game in hard mode. They're coming into this game in hard mode.
He's playing Ornn. He's trying to give Garen a bit of a fair start. You know, Ornn. You hear the horn, you run from Ornn, and I think Garen's going to be doing a lot of that in the lane.
So something I want to point out actually that I'm noticing real quick, in particular to the trinkets. Lap Ultra has gone ahead, switched from the ward to the sweeper after playing his ward on their own buff, so they're going to be able to sort of watch to make sure they're not going to get invaded. The reason why I'm bringing this up is I've noticed recently there's actually been a little bit of a trend of the junglers holding onto their ward and actually the bot laner collecting the sweeper. Specifically if they are going to be putting more focus on that bot lane. Obviously McGregor not opting for that. This does keep Lap Ultra's sort of options available and sort of picking where they want to gank. They'll have that sweeper available. On the other side, no sweeper picked up at all, and now you can see Rythmic taking advantage of Endrial's lack of flash, lack of items, and this Garen starting to turn into a little bit of a lane bully.
Yeah, another thing to take notice of in that top lane matchup, Ornn has just finally built himself a Doran shield up in that top lane, but Rythmic's actually opted for the Ignite on the Garen, so we're going to see a very, he's going to be pushing that kill pressure up in that top lane quite heavily, as we saw on that Ornn just there, trying to get as much damage down as he can. So that's something to take note of as later game team fights, you know, roaming fights. You know, Rythmic might not be able to get around to them as easily as the Ornn can, as Ornn has opted for that CP. But this early game is going to be a world of hurt for Ornn. That Doran shield would have done him a hell of a lot of good in that early fight.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. The more I look at this, I mean, this is going to be an aggressive McGregor side. Rythmic with the Ignite. Definitely going to be pretty spooky. anthonaaaay, though, did go to the teleport. Sponkle, actually, with the Ignite for the KG green side. Unique for these squads as Tiny Kids. All right, trying to force a bit of an action up on the top side. Has the double buff, but does connect with the Haymaker. And that's going to result in a bit of chip damage down on the Rythmic. This is a Garen, though. Trust me, Rythmic will be fine.
Yeah, with that passive alone, he'll be A-OK, plus the, the Doran shield healing. He is already healing up, as we can see. And this is a really awkward spot to be if you are Ornn, as we see. Yeah, he's just getting jumped on. That Ignite is dropped, but to no avail. That being said, Rythmic does still have his Flash, a resource that Endrial does not possess. So the Flash QE is very scary in this early game if he's not able to heal up.
Yeah, that's going to be something we're going to be keeping our eyes on for sure. Meanwhile, in the jungle, Tiny Kid's going for a cheeky invade. Actually does get the large Raptor and will be able to escape with some help from Sponkle. They might even try to turn this one around. Lap Ultra taken quite low. That's a flash forward from Tiny Kids, and it's not going to result in the first blood, or at least not for Tiny Kids. Sponkle does pick it up on the tail end of it all. Anthony tries to return the favor. Flashes back at the Tiny Kids, who stayed alive for so long. You think Sponkle should be able to clean this one up. The chain guns weren't connecting, but it doesn't matter because that last bomb will, and that's going to be a 2-1 lead for KG Green.
And that's really good for Sponkle there, getting 2 kills on that hyper carry in the mid lane. They do trade a kill over onto the Ryze, which is not terrible for McGregor, but it could have been so much better for them, and it could have gone so much worse. As we actually see, he's going onto Sponkle right now. That phase rush making him a menace to Sponkle. Misses the Q there at the end. Sponkle would have been in a world of hurt there. That 150 gold shutdown would have been very comfortable in Anthony's pocket. That being said, he's just going to be content with trying to catch up on that CS.
Yeah, that was scary, and that could have been a solo kill, which really could have helped McGregor as well get back into this game. Now, though, Corki is just going to be very scary. Has the Caulfield Hammer, so it's going to be able to continue to put sort of that sustained damage down. Dragon actually started up from the McGregor side, and very ambitious, a very early Dragon, but it may have caught KG off guard right now. Kelvin Grove, very slow to react. In fact, I don't think they're going to be reacting at all. You can see the question mark pings come out, but it will be way too little, way too late. Lap Ultra actually taken quite low in this affair, but the Smite will heal back up. You also have, the fruit you can eat. Yep, go for it, Lap Ultra. Nom. Get back into this lane. Another small advantage for McGregor right now, and they have Dragon Tempo.
Yeah, and Lap Ultra's going to be A-OK. He's taken the crab, it looks like. He can then pass to his Gromp. Gromp healing will be more than enough to take him back to pretty much full, and he can continue that pathing if he so wishes. We see Corki has just picked up his Tear of the Goddess. He's slowly starting to stack that. Meanwhile, Ryze, picking that up first. The addition of that into the starting items is really helpful for some of those mana stacking champions like Ryze, like Cassiopeia. It really helps them get that stacking early, and we're going to see that come to, that Archangel come in a little early, but we have a bit of trading up in the top lane.
Yeah, it's nothing too crazy until we see the call of the Forge God drop. Meanwhile, back on the opposite end of the Rift, Lap Ultra is actually taken quite low by an invading Kelvin Grove. That is going to force the Amumu out of the jungle. Curse of the money not really available yet, as the call of the Forge God actually wasn't really used for anything. A bit premature on that ultimate, I feel.
Yeah, I think it was more of a pressure ulti, just trying to relieve some of that pressure from the lane, get the lane shoving back in his favor. He did get the 6 before Rythmic, so maybe trying to capitalize on the Garen not having the ulti to contest. But we're going to see a little bit less.
Yeah, this is sort of the downside of it all. I think Rythmic, knowing that Endrial no longer has the Call to Forge God available, just can absolutely pressure this lane. And considering that Demacian Justice is mostly used as an execute, Endrial's going to have to be so cautious of what those kill thresholds actually are.
Yeah, but Endrial has been smart here, and he has decided to build the Brambles Vest straight up, so that that Conqueror plus the Garen healing is going to take a bit of a hit from that for the early laning. So pretty decent pickup there to counteract the rune and passive of the Garen. That being said, there's only so much healing you can resist before you're just going to die yourself from taking too much damage. Because Rythmic is more than happy just to wait off cooldown and just press that Q, press that E, and spin to win onto the Ornn.
Yeah, a lot of action happening in the top lane. It's been a very interesting matchup between that Garen and that Ornn. Elsewhere on the map, though, where things you could argue have been a bit more relevant towards that current game state, we are seeing Kelvin Grove slowly pull away with their lead, and that is coming through a bit of mid lane and jungle sort of prowess at this stage. Nearly pushing a 20 CS advantage with those 2 kills onto Sponkle. As, well, it looks like Lap Ultra is going to try to make themselves known in that top lane. Bandage toss not really able to be followed up upon. Rythmic not in position, and no ultimate available to hold him in place.
I just want to give credit where credit's due. You know, we gave Prinćess a lot of credit in the early game, in the pre-game, for, you know, being one of those players to watch. But I want to give credit to Benny Boy in keeping up with CS in the bot lane currently, and putting the wave state in a pretty solid position for them. Never mind. That's the flash down. Ornn's not allowed to have flash this game. The second it's off cooldown, it's back on it.
Oh, that's how you're supposed to use flash.
Exactly.
Abilities are there to be used, okay? So, like, everyone else has just been sitting on their flash for the first 9 minutes, not using it. I mean, they could have been moving faster on the map. That was a near kill in the mid lane, and we could be seeing something up top as well. You've got to be careful because Curse of the Sad Mummy may come down. And look at Endrial absolutely melt, similar to Lap Ultra, as both the top laner and the jungler are gone on opposing sides. That leaves Sett versus Garen, and I mean, with how broad their shoulders are, you think they could take up the entirety of that lane. Instead, they look to back away for it now. That's going to be Shelly dropped in lane. It's dropped by the Sett right on that tower, and I don't know if Rythmic's going to be able to stop it. That's a good chunk of damage, but those are also some tower plates going back to the Sett. Health bar still low, and you know Rythmic wants to go for it. Tiny Kids aware of the situation will back off.
Yeah, I think an interesting Herald drop there. I think it would have been probably better just to hold that a little longer, maybe get that kill up in the top lane and get Herald just getting free hits on that tower. But gold onto Sett is appreciated. As you see, he has picked up that Stride Breaker already onto the Sett. Looking at itemization, he's the first one to really get that mythic under his belt. We should be seeing a couple more coming out from bot lane soon. We see the Samira opting to build that shield bow. So opting for a little bit more of that lifesteal sustain in the team fight. Kai'Sa probably not going to be taking that same route.
No, I somehow doubt that Kai'Sa is going to be looking for sustain. I feel like Kai'Sa probably going to be looking for as much damage as possible and could be using it real soon. Voidseeker did connect on the Lap Ultra, and you've got just around that back Rowdey looking for a way in. This next dragon going to be contested for as each team's are making their way towards that dragon pit. Currently only 3 members from Kelvin Grove, but with that rise of anthonaaaay returning back to the mid lane momentarily, can't really decide if they want to commit for the fight or not. Scuttlebug will be secured in Kelvin Grove. They're actually starting up this Cloud Drake 4 members strong as Tiny Kids was able to work his way through the jungle, and it doesn't look like MacGregor want to contest this one. Second Drake goes to the blue side.
Yeah, MacGregor opting out of that fight, just giving it over to Kelvin Grove. It was something to take note of. That top lane did not have TP there, so they were not able to sort of TP into that fight if they wanted to. Package coming out.
Yes, Sponkle going after anthonaaaay, and with the heroic entrance, Rowdey is going to steal that kill for himself. Look, the heart was in the right place, but, you know, that was one of those situations where it might not have been needed.
I think they were underestimating the damage coming out of that Corki. He picked up that Essence Reaver just before that fight, and I think they were thinking he was going to need that ulti from the Galio. Little did they know, with the package burn and the E, just shredded through Ryze.
Tiny Kids just wailing away on Leona, but as the 2 bot laners actually do battle, here comes the ultimate right into a showstopper underneath the tower, and Tiny Kids gets the kill on the Benny Boys. Cuts trying to run away, but won't get out of this one. Prinćess secures their first of the game. Meanwhile, up top, that's Endrial and Lap Ultra going at it, and the Amumu damage is real. The tears, the woe. The kill secured. Another point going over to this Amumu in that regard. It's 6-3 in kills in favor of Kelvin Grove, but MacGregor, they're finding little advantages, I suppose.
Yeah, they're definitely finding their niche advantages, but overall, Kelvin Grove has been playing this really well. As we see Sponkle, he knows he's got the damage if he wants to compete for this mid lane. Ryze also throwing back a fair bit. Ooh.
Oh yeah, but you also have Lap Ultra on the tail end, and that flash was before the bandage toss, and it still works out for Sponkle, who might get himself the cheeky double, can't hit with that last rocket.
There looked like an ulti was coming in from Ryze. He's ultied into the mid lane and then flashes away.
What?
He ultied into the middle of the lane to try and get Sponkle, but had to flash immediately as the pressure from...
Oh no, the hunt is on!
Gets the snipe. I was going to say, the snipe, the range on those rockets is deceptive. Those things fly for miles, and unfortunately, anthonaaaay was on the receiving end of a Hail Mary from
Two-man taunt. That got them both, and that could be bad news for Benny Boy. Jumping in is Prinćess. Doesn't even need the killer instinct, as now let's just try to whittle as much damage on the Comga as possible. It looks like this Leona will safely get away, but I just want to take a step back real quick. We came into this one thinking Prinćess could be the player to watch, but it's actually the veteran of the team thus far, Sponkle on this Corki, that is taking over the middle of the map.
I think this is going exactly as Kelvin Grove needed it to go. You know, Prinćess is sort of the mid to late game backup, the late game insurance, you know, the 2 to 3 item spike. Meanwhile, Sponkle is not even got his mythic yet. He's only sitting on that Essence Reaver, and he's already dominating that mid lane. And the roaming potential with the TP, with the Realm Warp, is going to be immense for him. So getting that early game just dominance from Sponkle, and then getting the late game insurance on Prinćess, this is going to be a very rough game.
Oh, it's the Call of Force God will connect onto Rythmic. Haymaker draws him back. They're going to go under the tower with the showstopper. Last punch, though. Not going to be enough to take this Garen down, but will be enough to keep them stuck under tower. And I don't know if Rythmic can stick around to defend this. Lap Ultra is currently farming Raptors, and that means the tower dive is in effect. Flashing forward is Endrial and Tiny Kids, but Garen is just too slick and way too quick. They're going to have to settle for taking some tower damage instead. Lap Ultra just continuing to farm in that jungle, as down below in the bot lane, the siege continuing. Mid tower's low as well, and this lead for Kelvin Grove is going to start turning into objectives, I think, sooner than later. Sponkle goes for the solo kill and gets it.
Yeah, this is one of those really rough situations where, honestly, Rythmic needs to rotate to that mid lane and just sort of hold the wave in mid. I think Anthony just needs to try and freeze the wave up on that tier 2 tower top lane. And just have a little bit of safety from ganks. You know, he's only got the one side to worry about here. Sponkle is just running him down repetitively, and he has just got nothing he can do about it. And Ryze needs to get that CS under his belt. He's down a substantial margin at this point, which is going to make it really hard to get that itemization where he needs to be to sort of compete with Sponkle and the scaling team of Kelvin Grove. So really, really rough spot for McGregor right now. Not end of the world, but it's getting there.
Yeah, it's getting rough, especially with those 2 towers gone now. You can see that gold lead starting to extend. 6K gold lead for Kelvin Grove in a game that was even just about like 4 minutes ago. We're seeing the acceleration of Sponkle on this Corki, and we're seeing little mistakes in terms of positioning and reaction times, I feel like, from McGregor, starting to sort of nip away at them. Speaking of which, here comes the invade. Sponkle does force out that Curse of the Sad Mummy from Lapid Ultra, who will be able to walk away to safety, but no blue buff hurts Amumu more so than any other jungler, I feel, at times, and except for maybe Karthus. Either way, that's just going to be another setback, and one that could cost McGregor this dragon. Yeah,
Kelvin Grove is more than happy to go and pick up this Mountain Drake. And at this point, the Mountain Drakes are cancelling out the Infernal from the side of McGregor, so it's effectively just a dragon lead now for Kelvin Grove. And if they start getting that soul point, you know, they're not far off soul point. And if they can force that fight with McGregor, they have no option but to fight that or just lose the game. But we see a pretty big engage here from Ornn.
Yeah, that's another very early Call of the Forge God. We joked about him using Flash on cooldown. I think that ultimate's used on cooldown as well, and it could be to a detriment right here because anthonaaaay has room to the top side. So too has Lap Ultra, as the Bandage Dodge will connect, and that will be a top laner falling, but you have to look at what cost, because as that was happening on the opposite end of the map, another tower was taken. Sponkle feeling very aggressive, is packaging even deeper, looking for the 1v2, and is going to possibly get it. Lap Ultra does flash over the wall to safety. Rythmic going to try to get something back, and you know what? Garen can take down a Corki. He does so with the Demacian Justice. Heroic entrance, a little too late for Rowdey, who is now way too deep in enemy territory, because that's going to be McGregor who arrives first. Comga gets the stun. Rowdey nearly takes out Lap Ultra, and does with that last tick of burn. So chaos in the jungle right there, and I kind of feel like McGregor came out better for it.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see that both teams are going to start going for those fights now. They're really starting to get antsy, I think. They're realizing that fighting is sort of the only way back into this game for them. They don't have the map position nor the safety to sort of just farm and get their way back. And I think we're going to see a lot more fights coming out in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Ryze is just going to head down to that bot lane to farm. Mid lane is just going to do mid lane things. But yeah, McGregor definitely came out there in a better state, I feel. Garen is just really like wrecking that top lane at the moment. He's not freezing the wave, but he's he's got the wave in a pretty disadvantageous position for the Ornn, and that's how that kill came about. Ornn was pushed up a little too far, no one was pushed out mid. The wave was, on blue sides of the map. As we see a Herald being started here by Kelvin Grove.
Yeah, as Endrial's going to actually body block forward in that enemy jungle. Voidseeker actually connecting, and that might keep McGregor even further back as well. They're not wanting to step forward into this Kelvin Grove side. Sponkle, at this state of the game, the Manamune has been built, is slowly stacking up. Should be able to pretty much take out anyone on the McGregor team if they are caught out of position. And you can see the respect they're giving to this Corki as they just cannot step forward into this Kelvin Grove side. And while Turtle could be a good strategy right here, the unfortunate side of things is when McGregor eventually do decide to commit, they have to commit with everything they've got. Otherwise, they just will be disorganized and lose the fight. And I don't see themselves being in that kind of position to actually commit for a fight for a good long while.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's going to be really, really hard for them to make use of pretty much any of their, strengths at this point because just Kelvin Grove is so far ahead. As we see, looking at both sides, we have McGregor's picked up all of their mythics, but Kelvin Grove, tiny. No, actually,
yeah, this has been a long fight, but the damage is just not there to take Rowdey down. Colin Force God goes right through McGregor, and here comes Prinćess and Sponkle. From the back end, they have the flank. Yes, Zenith Blade is on Sponkle, but it's not going to do too much. This red side jungle starting to look like Tomato Town right now as everyone gets wiped out. Give Sponkle the Penta. He can't quite secure it. Kelvin Grove decimate McGregor.
And that was looking a little awkward of a fight because there wasn't a lot of damage there. And then all of a sudden, out of left field, Sponkle shows up. And then the damage arrived. And, we saw what happened there. Lap Ultra, the tank of the team, kind of got folded like paper. So we're seeing that strength in that mid lane, 10-1 on that Corki is just decimating the side of McGregor. And they're just going to ride this Herald in for one more smack if they can get it. Then not going to get it, actually.
This is looking spooky. Heroic entrance used on the spot right there. I think that's just not trusting your jungle's ability to escape. Two-man taunt. Kelvin Grove could turn things around, but is a little disorganized. They'd rather reset. They'd rather try to set themselves up for either Baron or one last push, and guess what? They got away unscathed.
Yeah, and a real blunder there for McGregor, unfortunately. The Herald was left on 38 HP as they went on for that fight, and managed to get half the Nexus tower down on a slam for free. So really unfortunate blunder there for McGregor. Going to make it a little harder for them to defend, especially seeing as those super minions are marching down that top lane, which is the exact tower that is now missing half its HP. But Ornn getting engaged on, but he is going to try and waddle his way out of that fight. But he might not be allowed to do so.
Yeah, I don't know if he gets away from this one, especially considering everyone from McGregor is here, but backup is on its way, and Endrial, he's tanky. He might be able to get there. Here comes one Rowdey, and he gets the two-man tower. Meanwhile, up above, Tiny Kids with the showstopper actually threw Benny Boy into an awkward position, and it's one that Sponkle's going to try to follow up through, but instead he runs right into Rythmic, who drops the Mossy Injustice onto this Corki, and that is a lot of damage done for the Kelvin Grove side. Killer Instinct, though, with Prinćess means a turnaround in this game, and Kelvin Grove, they get themselves the ace. They're pinging Dragon, but they should be pinging that Nexus instead. They should be able to end.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where if they just march it down mid and just run through that tower into top lane, that Nexus they've lost the Nexus tower, one of them. They've only got one more left with two waves of supers just crashing into that base. I think it probably would have been a better option here for them to just march it down, but they've opted for the safer route of just getting that dragon, securing that, putting Soul Point on the line, getting as much jungle as they can from McGregor, and they'll just wait for maybe a Baron or the next team fight to break out for them to clean that up.
I'm going to be a little bit critical of Kelvin Grove here.
Yeah.
Because, yes, they looked great in lane, and they've gotten themselves a lead now. We've passed that 10K mark. It's safe to say Kelvin Grove, 99% sure they're winning this game, but it hasn't been the cleanest victory for them. I think some macro mistakes, like you're just singling out right there, as well as constantly throughout this, it looks like they're picking fights, but not with the entirety of their team. When they're sort of built to be this sort of team divey comp, we never have actually seen it. They just keep wind up getting in these skirmishes, which they're winning largely due to the size of their wallets than necessarily how they're fighting in these sort of team fight situations.
Yeah, I definitely feel as though Kelvin Grove may be getting, like, in those fights, especially with the dive there from Sponkle. I think he overestimated his his strengths there. You know, he does have that shield bow, but in that fight, he did not have the shield bow for the tank. And he dived into two. He dived into Rythmic
right next to
anthonaaaay.
Rythmic, who's 5-1-3, might I
He's
add.
5-1-3 with Stride Breaker, and then you've got an Everfrost Ryze who's just throwing free stacks.
Oh
at you.
no! You don't want Benny Boy to get caught by Tiny Kids. The showstopper again on this bot laner forces Benny Boys to have to go towards the enemy in order to retreat. Meanwhile, Prinćess trying to find those kills on the tail end. Heroic entrance will knock up Lap Ultra, and the Curse of the Sad Mummy is not going to be used in time. Meanwhile, deeper into that red base, you can see the zoning effort by one Endrial. It looks like that's going to be the token in terms of winning this one out, as McGregor, they're forced back into the fountain. They're making that heroic stand. It's not going to be enough. Comga falls as well. anthonaaaay, one rocket takes out half of his health, and he will be the next one to go down. Rythmic left standing as his base is in shambles. Kelvin Grove Green, a return to form perhaps for this team. They advance to 2-0 on the season.
Yeah, Kelvin Grove with a decisive victory over McGregor GG. Not the cleanest of games, but that being said, decisive nonetheless. Beautiful display from the mid laner. Sponkle, everyone on that team did pretty well, if I'm being honest. And McGregor, even, you know, their bot lane, I want to give credit where credit's due. Benny Boy with some beautiful W's there, cancelling out Ornn ultis in the team fight, really shutting down a lot of the engage potential from Kelvin Grove, but just not enough to get that win.
No, it felt like we started to see the strength of the McGregor side too little too late. If they had been a bit more competitive throughout that laning phase, we probably would have seen more from them in those sort of late game fights, because I feel like they were a bit more synchronized and a bit more organized at the end. Kelvin Grove, they were more willing to scrap. They were more willing to limit test, I suppose. And as a result, they were getting caught out more often, but because of that gold lead, oftentimes they were able to bail their team out, and by picking, you know, a big, beefy front line, it helped them at that same token. Now, we've got about 10.5 minutes before our next game, so we're going to be throwing it to a break, but do not go too far away. I mean, just go about maybe 5 minutes away from your computer and then spend those next 5 minutes coming back, because when that timer hits 0, we'll have another game for you. Stick with us. More League of Legends when we return.